So if you're recording a video or anything, make sure your microphone's actually on, because I just spent an hour recording this and my mic wasn't even on, so this is just going to have to be take 2. Also, right now I'm currently testing the FIO BT11 that I just got with the Sony WH-1000XM4s, but this video isn't going to be about that. This video is going to be a review of the Hifiman Sundara. Now, before we get started, I do want to say that I purchased the Hifiman Sundara secondhand, and it's actually my second time owning the Sundaras. I sold them the first time that I owned them, because I own an Ananda and I own an HE400 SE, and to me, owning the Sundaras just felt a bit redundant, but I obviously liked them enough to buy them again, and so here we are, and today I'm reviewing them. So the Sundara is an entry-level planar neck headphone from Hifiman. Now, I know that Hifiman makes cheaper planars than the Sundara, but to me, at a price point of $300, this makes them very entry-level in the planar space compared to a lot of other competitors that are on the market. At the time of recording, the Sundara can be found online for around $279 new. Now, the build on the Hifiman Sundara actually feels really nice compared to some other Hifimans that I've tried. The cups right here, they're all made of metal, so is the yokes. Everything just feels really sturdy. This headband material right here, it's kind of like a fake leather material, and these are plastic. That's kind of like the weak point of these. This is plastic, and yeah. And the headband on these reminds me a lot of, when we grab them off the wall, remind me a lot of the Hifiman Ananda. This is the Hifiman Ananda. Very similar, almost identical headband on the two. Now, as far as comfort goes on the Sundara, I don't really have that many complaints on the Sundara, but I could see some users complaining that the cups don't really, I can make them swivel like this, but honestly, they don't really swivel that much. As you can see, the yokes right here, they don't swivel that much. But I can twist them, do everything. I don't really feel like they're going to break. You can hear them creaking a little bit, so... But they don't really... In normal use, they feel pretty robust, so yeah. The one thing that I do hate about the build, though, on these is... And I hate it, it happens on the Ananda too. It's just this style of headband. When you extend them... And I'll try to pick it up on the camera. I don't know if you can tell with the... I don't know if you can tell that well on camera, but you see the part where it extends right here. Is what I'm trying to show. So when you do extend these like that, you are literally scraping away. You're literally scraping away the paint on the inside of the headphones. That's all supposed to be black. You're literally, so every time you do this to adjust them, to put them on your head, you are literally scraping away the inside of the paint, the inside of the black paint on the headphones. So that's something that just, to me, it's almost unacceptable at this price. Almost unacceptable on any headphone. It's just the Ananda has it too, but the Sundara has it, and it's just this style of headband, so that is something to note if you are looking into buying these. But overall, besides that one issue, I don't really think that many people are going to be having that many complaints about the build quality on the Sundaras. Also, don't have that much to say about the ear pads on these. They are a hybrid material. I don't know if I can pick it up on the camera too well. The inside it's a hybrid pad, and yeah, I'll try to pick it up as best I can. There you can see it. So these pads are hybrid, but they're not really anything special or anything crazy. It's just typical Hifiman. The Sundara is also a great sounding headphone. To me, at this price point, the bass is what stands out the most of the Sundara. It's got that good thumpy low end bass, but it will be missing some of that really deep low end texture and rumble that you would be getting out of some more expensive planars. In terms of soundstage, I also don't really have that many complaints about the Sundara. I found these to soundstage and image very well for what they are, and one thing I did notice that I want to point out is I can hear a lot more from this direction, from the width, than I do from behind me and in front of me. So if I'm playing a game or something, it's easier and I have more width in the soundstage and imaging. There's a lot more width than there is in front of me and behind me, so that's something to note. But when I was gaming, I never felt like I was losing a competitive advantage or anything because of these headphones. And I could pinpoint my enemies and everything like that really easy. So if you are looking into using these for gaming, they won't disappoint you. I was also able to notice on the Hifiman Sundara, some of those higher frequencies, these sounded really well on something like EDM, like Monster Cat or No Copyright Sound. I never found those really higher frequencies to be lacking in those kind of genres, like I can on some cheaper headphones. I also don't have any issue with the mid-range on these either. But as far as scaling, these don't scale as much as some other headphones, but they do scale a little bit. I was able to notice on my usual setup, I use a Schiit Ragnarok 2 with an SMSL SU9. These did scale up a bit from when I plugged them into JDS Labs Atom Stack, so that's something to note. But I don't think you need a really crazy amplifier to run these. They will scale a little bit, but they're not going to scale like crazy. So I actually think if you bought these and something like a JDS Les Adams stack, that's a very good entry level into the hobby. And I do actually recommend that if you were going to pick something like this up, you do look into DAC amp setups that are about $100 to $200, and I think that would give you the most out of the Hifiman Sundaras. Now, I do want to compare the Hifiman Sundara to a few other headphones in its price range. I do think there are a few other headphones that you should consider if you are looking for something in around this price range. So yeah, let me get right into that. Now, the first headphone that I think you should consider if you're looking at the Sundaras is the Sennheiser HD6XX. To me, the Sennheiser HD6XX is the Sundara's biggest competitor. At the time of recording, it comes in at around $219, but I have seen it dip for lower and go for a lot lower prices. It just depends around what time you buy it and what deals you can find. Now, while the Sundara is a planar magnetic headphone, the 6XX is a dynamic driver headphone. So if you do want to try an entry-level planar magnetic headphone, I would still recommend the Sundaras, and you should not even look at the 6XX. But in terms of just sound, I think that the 6XX offers a much more neutral sound than the Sundaras. The 6XX has much better mid-range than the Sundaras, but what it's lacking compared to the Sundaras is, to me, the Sundaras have a bit more, they have a better low end, and they just sound very dynamic compared to the 6XX. They sound a lot more dynamic in the lows and the highs, but they are still lacking that mid-range that you would get out of the 6XX. Now, another thing to note to me is these scale a lot more than the Sundaras. So if you got a better amplifier, these might actually get better bass for you than the Sundaras. But at that point, you're going to be spending more on amplification than either of these headphones cost, so that's a huge consideration. But at the end of the day, these will scale on higher end gear better than the Sundaras will, in my opinion. But to me, I think the decision will come down to, do you want to try a good entry-level planar headphone like the Sundara with that planar bass, or would you rather have something with a dynamic driver like the 6XX with more neutrality and a better mid-range? But if it was my money personally and you were asking me, I prefer the 6XX. But I would do a lot of research into both these headphones if you're looking into picking one up, because I do know a lot of people that do actually prefer the Sundara over the 6XX. The HE400SE is another headphone that you may be considering if you're looking at entry-level planars. It comes in at $109, and that's a lot cheaper than the Sundara. But sadly to me, the HE400SE is lacking quite a bit compared to the Sundara. It just has worse resolution and bass, has worse resolution overall and a worse bass response, not as thumpy as the Sundara. But if you're looking for an entry-level planar to try, this is a lot cheaper. You can actually buy two of these and still have money compared to the Sundara. So I still would really consider this if you were looking for entry-level planar, just because of the price point. And if you're looking for something and you've never tried planars, or you're low on cash and just want a cheaper headphone, these won't disappoint you at all for $109. I would also consider looking at the Hifiman Ananda. The Ananda is currently selling for $359. While I do think the Ananda is a straight upgrade from the Sundara in most aspects, I do think that the Sundara can still come across a bit thumpier and more powerful in the bass region. But to me, what you're getting with the Ananda is this is one of the best tuned headphones I've ever heard at any price point. I also find the Ananda to have a far superior soundstage to the Sundara in almost every way. There's more width, I can hear in front of me, behind me, everything just a little bit more wide and more separated, and the layering is a lot better with the Ananda. The Ananda actually feels like it wasn't made as good as the Sundara if I'm nitpicking a bit, because all of this material right here on the cups, it feels all plastic, where on the Sundara, to me, it kind of feels like it was all made of metal. But one thing you can tell is with the headbands, and if you actually just look at these and everything, you can tell they were definitely made from the same company, and comfort's about the same besides the shape of the ear cups, as you can see, and so it's not really that much different overall. But I do really love the Ananda. I owned it first, and it was my first planar headphone I've ever owned, so I may be a bit biased towards the Ananda. But I would still take the Ananda over the Sundara any day, because to me it's just the more mature sounding headphone. Everything about this just screams maturity in comparison to the Sundara, in my opinion. But it doesn't really blow the Sundara away in any aspect. To me, it's just better than the Sundara in most aspects. It's also a bit more expensive than the Sundara, so that is something to consider if you are cross-shopping the two, but I still would consider the Ananda the more mature sounding headphone between the two. One last headphone I want you to consider if you're looking at the Sundara, and I don't currently own it, but I have tried it in the past, is the HE6 SEV2. Now, the HE6 SEV2 requires a lot more power than any of the other headphones I've listed today. It requires a really strong amplifier to bring out the most and get the most out of it. It's also more expensive than any of the other headphones I've listed in this video, but to me, it sounds most like the Sundara, but better. To me, the Sundara just kind of sounds like a baby HE6 SEV2 in a way. If you've ever heard the HE6 SEV2, you may know what I'm talking about. The HE6 SEV2 is also one of the most dynamic planar headphones that I've ever heard, and it's going to give you that. If you ever heard, like other reviewers, they'll talk about the planar bass and that really, really deep low-end rumble. I really get that with the I really get that out of the AG6 SCV2 more than any other planar I've ever tried, personally, except for maybe some really expensive and niche headphones. So that is really something that I would consider, especially at the current price point that it's at, even though it is more expensive than all these other headphones. But I still would like to mention that the AG6 SCV2, it's not going to sound as natural as something like that Ananda that I mentioned earlier. So that's something to note if you're looking for something that's going to have a really natural sound. But the reason you'd want an AG6 SCV2 is for that really strong, low-end, planar magnetic bass. So you may be asking, what is my overall recommendation and what do I think of the value of the Hifiman Sundara in 2024? So $279, I think the Sundara is still a great headphone at that price point, and I'll recommend to anyone looking for entry-level planar. To me, the Sundara, at this point, it's kind of becoming a classic, kind of like the 6XX. In terms of its popularity, it's kind of becoming like the planar version of the Sennheiser HD6 series with the 600 and the 6XX, in my opinion. But if I was purchasing a Sundara for myself, like I did, because I own this one, I would look around on the used market. If you can find these for $150 or less, which I've seen them quite commonly, to me that's a bit of a steal. I was actually able to pick up my Sundara, my personal pair I have here. I was actually able to pick that up for $120. So if you're able to get something like that, that's just a steal, and I would recommend that any day of the week. But thanks for watching, and I hope that you stay tuned for more content. I hope that you liked my review of the Sundara. If you have any questions about the Sundara or any of the headphones I talked about in this video, leave a comment below, and I'll try to answer those as soon as possible. So stay tuned for more content, and thanks for watching, guys.